Hello everyone. In our last session of stopwatch application, we learned how to create the user interface, that's graphical user interface. This session, we will focus on creating the time tracking methods. So these are the methods that are responsible for setting the appropriate time, and we also have a separate class that creates or tracks the time. We also have the methods that handle the button actions. When we click on each of those buttons, what happens? First, we will go ahead and create a stopwatch. As you have seen, initially we had two classes, stopwatch application and stopwatch. So we were going to look into the stopwatch class, and then we look into the set time method, and then some of the variables, and then the button actions. Let's go into IDEA and then see these applications. Here is the IDEA. What we do first here is let's go into the stopwatch class. Stopwatch class is a simple, straightforward class. It is there in a package, com tuxila java by example project stopwatch, and we have imported a calendar, and this extends thread. So stopwatch is a thread. So in this, what we have done here is we have created an instance of the calendar, and we also have a stopwatch app variable, and you will understand why is this in next few minutes. And we have a run flag equal to true, which tells whether a stopwatch is running or not. Then we have a constructor. All we are trying to pass here is the name of this object. So let's say for a stopwatch, if we give a name, that will be passed on to the thread as it is a name. So in case if you're running and if you want to debug, if you want to know the name of the thread, you will get to know about it. Then what we have done here is we also have provided a method to set this stopwatch app, that is set stopwatch app into stopwatch class, because stopwatch class should be sending notifications to stopwatch app at an appropriate time to increment the time in the GUI. That's why we need this variable. Then we have isRun flag. This is just going to tell us whether the stopwatch is running or not. It just simply returns the run flag. If it is true, it is running, otherwise it is false. Then we also have a method to set the run flag, which sets the run flag to the value that is passed into this method. Then we have a method called run, and in the run method, it is very simple and straightforward. You have seen some of the thread methods. What we have written here is system.out.println simple clock started. We're just printing it onto the screen that it is the clock has started. And then we have calendar.get instance. We are getting the instance of the calendar that we created here. Then as long as the run flag is true, you notice this run flag is true. If this is true, in the loop, we will sleep for 998 milliseconds. 1000 milliseconds is a second. So we're sleeping for 998 milliseconds. And then we will get up, or the thread would get up, and then it would go ahead and call stopwatch app. Remember stopwatch app we set into here? It calls a method called increment time and then the set time. Okay. So this stopwatch, once this is set, the increment time and the set time methods get called almost every second. And there is certain time that is required for us to go and call this increment time, set time, and do all those things. So I have set that to 998 milliseconds. So 2 milliseconds is given for these operations, for setting and then incrementing all those things. This is an approximate thing. You could go back and set it to 999 or even 8000 milliseconds. The difference is going to be so low, and probably even if it takes a little bit more, okay, it would be, we will be able to notice this only in 500 or 600 seconds. 1 second of difference probably would come. But for our practical purposes, this is a stopwatch. It just it helps us understand some functionality of Java, and we have built a reasonably accurate clock. Okay, so what you have seen here is this is a run method, and once we instantiate this class and start the thread, it is a run method that gets called, and it sleeps for 998 milliseconds, and after that it calls increment time and set time methods of the stopwatch app. This would exit this loop when run flag is set to false. Okay. Now let us take a look at what happens in the stopwatch app. Now what we have here is a create stopwatch. So in the create stopwatch here, if we look at this, let's go to the main method and let us stopwatch app. So we had initialize GUI and the set time, and then initialize GUI, if we look at it, we have initialized all these things. Then we have a set time method here, and then we will come back here in a method. Okay, so what we have here is a create stopwatch method. We will get to that, the details of this in a method. All this does is when it gets called, it creates an instance of stopwatch and assigns this to stopwatch variable, and this is a variable that is at the class level. Stopwatch variable, start button, stop button, reset button, and then is watch ticking, and then here we have stopwatch button, so stopwatch variable, and then set stopwatch app equal to this, or set stopwatch app of this. This means this is the stopwatch class that we are talking about, the instance of this particular class that we are passing it to set stopwatch app. So by passing this, when we created the stopwatch app, we are able to call the increment time and the set time method on this class or this instance of the class. Next, what we have here is we have created the create stopwatch. Then we have increment time. Every time we call this increment, there are three variables, if you notice, that keep track of the time: hour, minute, and second. We increment them. We increment the second. If the second is 60, then what we do is we increment the method and set it to 60. And then if the minutes is 60, then we increment the hour and set the minutes to 0. And then if the hour equals 24, then we set the hour to 0. So notice that every time we are first incrementing the seconds. And then let's say if the second 60, seconds become 0 and increment the minute. Then we go ahead and increment the minutes and then hours appropriately. This increment time increments the local variables hours, minutes, and seconds. Then we have set time class, set time method. All it does is in the hours field, it sets the value of hour variable. In the minutes field, we set the value of minute variable, that is here. And then second field, we are setting the value of second variable. So you notice that stopwatch sleeps and then calls the increment time method. The increment time method increases the values of the variables. Then we are calling the set time method. Now the set time method is responsible for setting it on the screen. Now let us see the button actions clause. Now this is where everything comes together. Now let us start with there are three buttons here. When one of the buttons is clicked, we get to call, or the framework calls, the action performed method, and then we get the event from the get action command method. So event EVT, that's the action event, has a method called get action command, and whatever the set action command we have given for the button, that will be given to us here when we call this method. If the command is reset, all we are trying to do here is set hour, minute, and second to zeros and set time. So when we reset it, we want everything to be set to 0. That's what we are doing here. If it is a start, that is when we are calling a start or when we are clicking the start button, what we are trying to do here is if the watch is ticking, if the watch is not ticking, then create a stopwatch first. We are going to create a stopwatch. That is, first we will create an instance of this stopwatch and pass the current class to the stopwatch, and then start the return flag. That is, set the return flag to true. Set the run flag to true, so that we know that when we get into this loop, the run flag is set. We are setting that to true, and then we are calling the stopwatch. We created an instance of stopwatch in the create stopwatch method here, and then assigned it to stopwatch variable. It also set the variables, and we are starting the thread in the stopwatch. When we start this thread, this run method gets called, and then in the run method we are trying to sleep and then increment the time and then set the time as long as the run flag is true. Okay, and then is watch track ticking, we are setting it to true. Then what we have is, when we click on stop, we are setting the is watch ticking to false, and then stopwatch.set run flag to false we are setting. The moment we set the stopwatch.run flag to false, it comes here, it checks that it is false, it does not enter the loop, and it simply, the thread gets stopped. Okay. Next time when we click on start, okay, you notice that the stopwatch ticking is false. Again, it false, goes back and create a new instance of the stopwatch, and then it continues to run. Now let us go back and see this in action. Now let us say start. As you notice, now it is incrementing the seconds, 4, 5, 6 seconds, everything. And then let me stop. If I stop now, it is not incrementing. Again, if I start now, it will start incrementing from 10. So it will go to 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Now again, let me stop. Now it is stopped. Now I click on reset. When I click on reset, everything got reset to 0. Now let's also start and just leave it for some time and see how the minutes get incremented. We cannot wait for hours, it takes a lot of time. Probably for a minute we can wait and see whether the minutes get incremented or not. So at the end of the day, what we have done here is we have created a window, we have created the display panels, and then we have created the buttons to track time. We are relying on the system clock to increment the seconds. That is, we are using the calendar instance to get the appropriate time, and then we are sleeping for a certain time, and then we are incrementing it. We are incrementing the time. So this stopwatch application uses several concepts that we have learned. We have learned about the windows, we have learned about the GUI, and then we have learned about the threads. All these things are coming together. Now, if you notice, the minutes got incremented, and then seconds became 0, and seconds again are incrementing. 6, 7, 8, they keep on going. When the minutes become 60, hours get incremented, minutes become 0, and then again seconds are 0, they will keep running. So this is how we have created a stopwatch to display display time. That's about the stopwatch functionality. In our next session, we will recap this, and this is about the project. Thank you and have a good day.